Chapter 1, Where It All Begins. This is how the story begins. Not in boring cubicles, surrounded by paperwork, dealing with salaries all day long, but in this classroom, where we're nurturing stories inside of not only us, but in you, in everyone. We are storytellers. We know you have something to say to the world, and we want to tell it for you. Chapter 2. This is how we grow. We don't go through life, we grow through it. We learn from the best, from our lecturers to seasoned industry partners. We take initiatives and learn through hands-on experiences. Because theories are our friends, but practice is our soulmate. Along the way, hardship is inevitable, but we are equipped with a growth mindset and essential soft skills that help us embrace adversity and strive for the best. Chapter 3, Realize Our True Potential. Where do you think you'll find us? The answer is everywhere. In an office, sure, but also in services, NGOs, agencies, governments, or even startups. From getting you accredited internationally to sending you on to a global career, we're here for you for a lifetime. And at the end of the day, when your stories get told, that's when we've done our job. Who are we? We are Human Resource Management. Join our story.
Why choose the management department of RMIT? What do people think of when they think of Vietnam? They would normally think of a fast developing country with an open economy and a favorite destination for international investors and business people. A country like that needs the best business programs so its people can operate in high pressure business situations and can perform at the highest levels. And the best business programs in Vietnam are found at the Department of Management at RMIT Vietnam. At the Department of Management, we offer programs in
Human resource management students in RMIT can look forward to becoming skilled professionals in an industry that has huge growth potential and career potential as well.
Bachelor of Business in Management students learn how to solve complex issues, lead teams, and make sound business decisions across a variety of companies and functions.
RMIT Vietnam's Bachelor of Tourism and Hospitality Management is the first in Vietnam with accreditation from the Institute of Hospitality and the first in Vietnam having PATA chapter for higher learning institution.
International business graduates can work in any company anywhere in the world. They can manage people above them, at the same level, or below them.
Master of Business Administration students are prepared to be business leaders with future-proof skills, standing out in creative problem solving, in teamwork, or presenting business ideas.
Our teaching philosophy is based on a student-centered approach, which makes our graduates ready for work and life. Industry engagement is embedded in everything we do, from work-integrated learning practices to the authentic assignments that help students measure their progress.
For the past few years, government leaders and business leaders have joined us at RMIT to interact with our students and faculty. Successful alumni of RMIT also join us, and they come back and they share and inspire our current students.
When should you join us? Now! The new normal caused by COVID-19 will have an impact on the way we conduct all forms of business. That will need new skills and new understanding of what will be the meaning of success. RMIT Vietnam will prepare you not just to survive in the new world, but to thrive in it.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Thought Leadership event. The scope of today's event is on entrepreneurial action and how best to be and remain successful in a post-COVID era. The Thought Leadership events are an initiative of the School and Business of Management in RMIT Vietnam, and it's a means for us to work with our community and academics to share knowledge. Today's talk is supported by the Human Resource Management Department and the Entrepreneurship Program as well. And in line with that, we have a whole bunch of different speakers from different parts of the world who will share their insights into the different ways businesses and entrepreneurs are dealing with difficulties under COVID, and how perhaps we've found new ways of working. We'll hear about the activities in the UK. We'll hear about how businesses are confronting these crises in Europe, and also how to transform our business in an increasingly digitized world. We also have the opportunity to put questions to our panelists and gain deeper insight into how to be successful at this difficult time. So my name is Dr. Seng Kiat Kok. I am the Senior Program Manager for Human Resource Management and Entrepreneurship, and I'll be your host and MC today. I warmly welcome you all to the session, where I hope we're able to share and illuminate opportunities to be resilient and successful during and after this pandemic. We have a great lineup for today's panel. No doubt that we have some fascinating information to be covered and different perspectives as well. On the panel today, we have 3 speakers. We will have Mr. Joe Fitzsimmons from the Institute of Directors, followed by our own Dr. Abel Alonso, Senior Lecturer in International Business from RMIT. And we'll also have Ms. Thuy Nguyen, Chairwoman and founder of datawork.org, who will be able to share their stories and share their thoughts with you today. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon listening to the deep insights and sharing from all our panelists. Can I now call upon Associate Professor Nguyen Quang Trung, Head of the Department of Management, to formally open our event. Associate Professor Chung, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Shank. Dear Mr. Joe Fitzsimmons, Senior Policy Advisor, the Institute of Directors from UK. Ms. Thuy Nguyen, Chairwoman, Founder of datawork.org. Dr. Abel Alonso, Senior Lecturer and International Business, School of Business and Management. Ms. Thuy Nguyen, Associate Lecturer, HR and Entrepreneurship, School of Business Management, RMIT Vietnam. Distinguished guests, colleagues and students, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nguyen Quang Trung, and I'm the head of Management Department, School of Business and Management. And this is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the Entrepreneurial Talk 2021. Entrepreneurial action and corporate entrepreneurship, the key to successful ventures post-COVID. This event will provide insight into not only the business landscape and also approaches to dealing with the pandemic, but actions as we move towards a post-COVID-19 world. As we get used to with the new normal, what are the plans and initiatives that have been undertaken to develop opportunity for the future, and what can be learned from dealing with such economic turbulence and uncertainty? Similarly, with the vaccination programs accelerating internationally, how can business plan for this new reality? The event will feature speakers and insight from different parts of the world, like you see from our Senior Program Manager, Dr. Shanks, have just now presented. Providing the global perspective of entrepreneurial action, the experts will also share some of their thoughts and experience, providing advice and signposting approaches for continued business success. The event, like this one, speaks right to the demands of the industry and the country like Vietnam, like you already seen in the video clip that we played just now. I would like to take this chance to thank the event team and the HIM program staff, especially our wonderful Senior Program Manager, Dr. Sankot, for all of the great efforts put in place for this event. I hope you will have an enjoyable and enriching session ahead. Thank you. Hand it back over to Dr. Sang.
Thank you, Associate Professor Chung, and thank you once again to everyone for being able to attend today's session. Before I introduce our first speaker, please feel free to put any questions or any thoughts that you'd like to share with the panelists today. We'll have time for a Q&A at the end of all the presentations. Hopefully we'll have around 30-35 minutes for the Q&A. Thank you to those of you who've also sent your questions in advance, and we'll put those to the panel when we get the chance to later today. So I've got the pleasure of introducing our first speaker, Joe Fitzsimmons. Joe is a colleague and a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time, and Joe has worked at the Institute of Directors in the UK since 2015, and he joined the policy unit recently in 2019 before becoming senior policy advisor in 2020. So Joe's role has advanced through the organization, and he's now focused on policy development and looking at education and skills and the future of the workforce. He also leads the IOD's sustainability and diversity and inclusion policy work as well. So having known Joe for a long time, Joe is passionate about supporting organizations and their leaders to improve on sustainability and diversity. And he's worked with not only companies and organizations, but business communities and academic institutions as well. So Joe's talk today will examine some of the research undertaken by the IOD and how the pandemic has changed the ways of working, and perhaps how a hybrid way is the way forward given COVID. Joe, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sang, and thank you very much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited to share some of our research and some of our thoughts with you all. So thank you once again. So as Sang mentioned, I am Joe Fitzsimmons. I've been at the IOD for the past 6 years, and during that time I've done various different pieces of work, including supporting young people, supporting university students around the UK, and indeed supporting business leaders and business communities around the UK as well. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about the Institute of Directors today, and then later in my session I'm going to move on to tell you a little bit about the research we've done and some of our findings and the ways in which we're supporting the business community. So as you'll see on this slide, the Institute of Directors was founded in 1903, so just over 100 years ago now. And 3 years later, in 1906, we were awarded with a Royal Charter. So that means that we have a duty of care to the British, to the UK society as a whole, but also we have a role to make sure that business and entrepreneurship thrives for economic growth in the United Kingdom. And in 1978, we moved into our iconic premises, which are on 116 Pall Mall in central London, very close to Trafalgar Square. So if you're ever visiting London, please do take a look at our offices there on 116 Pall Mall. Could I have the next slide, please? So on the next slide, you'll see some photos of our premises on 116 Pall Mall. So this is our iconic head office in London. So the photo in the middle on the top there, that's the outside, and then you'll see some photos from the inside. So this is where many of our directors come to meet with one another, to attend events, networking events, to attend professional development so that they can become better leaders. So we have about 20,000 members around the UK. So each one of those members are a director or an owner of a company themselves, and they come to us to make sure that they can do their job as effectively as possible, but also so that we can influence government on their behalf, and so that we can help them network with one another. So there's lots of different spaces in the building. Some of them are meeting rooms, some of them are event spaces, and then there are some restaurants and some cafes and so on and so forth. So if you do get an opportunity to visit when you're in London, please do. We'd be very pleased to welcome you and to show you around our premises. Could I have the next slide, please? So one of our roles at the Institute of Directors is to influence the government. So we survey our members and we ask our members, how are things going for you in your organization? What kind of support do you need? And over the past 18 months, our members have needed a lot of support, of course, because it's been such a challenging environment, as it has for the whole business community globally. So we ask them, How are things with recruitment? Are you planning to recruit? Are you not planning to recruit? How are things with your organization? Is business going well or is it slowing down? And based on the responses we receive, we develop policy recommendations, and we then speak to various different members of government, so the Prime Minister, his officials, the Secretaries of State for various different departments. We make recommendations through to government, and this hopefully supports our members and the business community as a whole to thrive and to grow. So that's a huge part of the work we do, and that's a large part of the work that I do in the policy team at the IOD. If I could have the next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, we do a large number of regional and national events. So some of the events are held in the building I showed you at the beginning in Pall Mall. Some of the events are held in different locations around the UK to make sure that there is local support for businesses everywhere. And then indeed, some of the events are online, but of course, over the past 18 months or so, all of the events have been online. So it's been a little bit more difficult perhaps for the networking element, but it's still been very possible to help directors to increase their knowledge and to give them support and to have a dialogue to understand what they need and what the future might look like for them and their organizations. If I could have the next slide, please. So on the next slide, you'll see this is our IOD Annual Convention. So in London, there's a venue called the Royal Albert Hall. If you take a look on Google, it's a very impressive venue, and this is where we hold something called the IOD Annual Convention. So this is where we bring business leaders. We had the founder of Wikipedia, we had the founder of very large car manufacturing organizations, the founder from startups, we have the leaders from banks, and indeed many politicians come and speak at our annual convention every year. Now, this again has been on hold over the past 18 months, but we will be looking to the future to see how we can do similar events and perhaps do them in a virtual way so that they're more accessible to people not only around the UK but internationally. So if you're interested, please do take a look on the IOD websites, iod.com, and you'll see all the events that are coming up. And as I said, many of those events are virtual, so you can always find something that might help you on there virtually. If I could have the next slide, please. So one of the things that I've been really passionate about, as I mentioned earlier, is around supporting business leaders. And we do develop lots of skills in business leaders. We have developed our own director competency framework, which you'll see on this slide. Now, please don't worry about reading all of the text on here because there's a lot, but you'll see on the wheel, there are 3 sections. You have the blue section, the purple section, and the green section. Each one represents something that we believe directors need. So in the blue, you've got knowledge. So that consists of things like finance, strategy, corporate governance, leadership, and stakeholder relations. In the purple, you've got skills. So those are things like strategic thinking, decision making, leadership, influencing. And then in the green, you've got mindset. And that's things like being aware of yourself and of others, and being ethical, being professional. So we believe that when you combine the knowledge, the skills, and the mindset, and you have all of these competencies, you're an effective leader. So we support our members by helping them measure their performance against all of these elements. And when they do so, they can identify the areas where they're very strong, and they can identify the areas where they perhaps need a little bit more support. And we work with them to develop those extra support, those areas where they need support. If you want more information on this, there's lots of it on our website as well. It's a very interesting concept, and you may wish to sort of assess yourself at some point in the future against the competencies, just to get an idea around the kinds of things you might benefit from. And of course, you'll be developing many of these skills already. If I could have the next slide, please. So we have a range of online resources and fact sheets. As I mentioned earlier, the past 15 to 18 months has been very, very challenging for the business community. So we provide lots of information through our website. These are just some examples of the kinds of things that we have provided in the past. Things like legal updates, things about stress management, the do's and don'ts of e-commerce, purchasing a franchise, all of these very specific things, but really very helpful during a pandemic. The next slide, please. On the next slide, you'll see we've got a publication. It's called Director magazine, and so we also publish this more broadly. So if you're interested, you'll find that online. And if I could have the next slide, please. Yes, so this is Director magazine, so please do take a look online. And then this is our Student of the Year Award. So as I mentioned, we do lots of work to support young people, and we like to recognize young people who have set up a business, perhaps when they're in a university, perhaps when they're studying or they've recently graduated. And we get those students and we ask them to tell us their stories about their business, and we then award students with recognition for the great achievements that they have during that time, and it helps to excel their business growth and their own development into the future as well. The next slide, please. So this is just a final slide on for the first half of what I was going to share with you, and it's really just saying that over 85% of jobs are filled via networking. That's something we found through our own research. So we always encourage everyone, our business community, but also young people and students, to network as much as possible, to grow your network, connect with people where you can, and that way you will be able to grow and develop over time, and it presents you with opportunities for your future as well. So as I said, now I'm going to move on to the second part of my presentation, which is just sharing some insights from the business community, specific insights. So if I could please have the next slide. So here you'll see, now please don't worry about reading all of the text on these slides, I just included it for your information, but the question we asked was, is further support needed for organizations reducing carbon footprint and achieving sustainability goals? So we know that achieving sustainability is becoming incredibly important for the global community, and particularly here in the UK, the government have very ambitious targets to reduce our carbon footprint. So when we asked this question, 46% of the business people that responded said that it was going to be very important for their organization to operate sustainably, and about 37% said it would be somewhat important. So only a small number of people, which was about 18%, said that it was not very important or not at all important. So we know that this is an important issue for our business community. If I could have the next slide, please. So we then also asked the second question, which is on the top of the slide, is how much do you understand the way in which your organization can lower its carbon footprint and meet net zero goals, carbon goals? So only 24% of our members fully understand the way that they can do that. So what that tells us is we need to do more to educate directors about sustainability, the benefits it can have for their organization and the benefits it can have for the economy and indeed for the globe, for the world, for the planet. So that's really important for us. The second thing on here is, to what extent do you agree or disagree that the costs associated with moving towards net zero goals are prohibitive? So there were about 30% of members, if you combine the strongly agree and the agree, about 30% of business leaders think that feel that the costs associated with moving towards net zero goals are prohibitive. So it tells us we need to ask the government here in the UK to really do more to support the business community in their objectives to move to net zero goals. If I could have the next slide, please. So moving on to a new topic, that was about sustainability. But when we look at hybrid working, so this is, of course, everyone in the UK has been working remotely where they can from home during the pandemic. But what we expect is we asked, which of the following most closely describes your organization's expected use of the workplace in the longer term? So we're talking about how much do they think they're going to use offices, factories, workspaces, and so on. And as you'll see here, only 19% said that they would do no remote working in the future. So that means that the remainder, which is around about 80%, the vast majority of those people, expect to do somewhere between 1 day a week remote and fully remote. So about 11% said that they would only work remotely in the future. So this tells us about the changing nature of work in the future. If I could have the next slide, please. So as I said, this here is about the future of work. And then here you'll see long-term, sorry, this one here is whether or not they found remote working to be more or less productive. So we asked, is it better or is it not as good when you work remotely? If you look at the results here, you'll see that about 40%, if you combine the top two, said that it was more productive, but actually about 37% said that it was less productive. So it works differently for different types of businesses and different types of organizations. So we're going to be working with our business community to make sure that they are able to be as productive as possible when working remotely. Hopefully they can be as productive as they were before the pandemic started. And then I've got one more slide, so if I could have the next slide, please. And this will be the final piece of data. Yes, here we are. So the pandemic will lead to long-term shifts in recruitment and workplace practices. So we know that there's going to be changes to where people work, largely from home, largely virtual. We asked which of the following recruitment and workplace trends have become more common during the pandemic that you plan to use more in the long term. So you'll see lots of things on this list. If you take, for example, the first one, virtual interviews, many of our members, our businesses are only doing virtual interviews. So this really helps to encourage more people from different locations to apply for those roles, and it broadens out the range of opportunity. Remote working options is the second one. So 81% of people chose that option. The really great thing about that is it means that people with caring responsibilities, so that might be working parents or those who have to look after family members, they've got that extra flexibility to engage virtually. Hiring under more flexible contracts, that was also 26% of people. Reducing their office space, 32% of people. So you'll see lots of different changes here. So that's all of my slides, but really I just wanted to finish by saying that we will continue to survey the business community here in the UK to understand the kinds of things that will affect their organization moving forward. And as we gain better understanding, we continue to influence the government for making sure that there is enough support in place. And we'd love to share more of this research with you. So please do take a look on our website if you have any interest in specific data, but equally do take a look at the events. And I hope that we'll be able to welcome you to one of our virtual events in the very near future. So thank you again very much for welcoming me today. It's been a pleasure to speak to you all, and I'd like to pass back over to Seng. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you for sharing those insights as well. It's very interesting to see the companies pushing towards sustainability, and that's one of the United Nations goals as well. And perhaps with the hybrid work environment or the lesser need for offices, we might actually be much more sustainable in the future. But thank you very much for sharing, and I'm sure there'll be some questions to you later in the afternoon from the audience. Right, can I introduce to you our next speaker? Dr. So he's a senior lecturer in international business in RMIT, and he's lived and worked in 9 different nations around the world, so definitely very internationalized and definitely a lot of experience. Abel is a passionate researcher in the areas of family business, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, and has taken this research globally as well. So he's done work in Australia, Argentina, Chile, Italy, New Zealand, and I forget how many different languages Abel's able to speak as well, but that just shows the depth of his expertise and the width of his experiences as well. He's passionate about sharing his experiences and guiding students through the university, and also to try and bring industry specialists into the classroom as well. He has spearheaded mobility visits internationally to expose students to real businesses, and I'm sure he'll have a lot of deep insight to share with us with his presentation today. Abel's talk today will focus on micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises and how they're confronting crisis with insights shared from different countries in Europe. Dr. Abel, thank you for your time.
Thank you all, and I hope you can all hear me from my desk here. So a warm welcome to all for attending this lecture and to the previous guest speaker for an insightful presentation. So without any more interruptions, could we please move on to the next slide? So my presentation is basically about SMEs and two pieces of research that I conducted. Yes, so micro and small businesses are a fundamental group of businesses for pretty much all countries, except maybe for North Korea and one or two other countries around the world. However, for the vast majority, they represent over 90% of the businesses, at the very least 80%, and in the European Union, almost 99%. So my two studies are from three European Union countries: Italy, Greece, and Cyprus. The first study will be on the latter two, but as you can see on the image, micro businesses, or those businesses that employ 9 or fewer full-time employees, represent the vast majority, and in the European Union, they contribute to over 60% of the jobs. So if you will go to the next slide, please. So 67% of, so 2/3 of the employment in the European Union, and here in Vietnam is about 50%. So they are extremely important for the economy of countries. So this study, because of their sheer nature, number, and importance, I typically like to conduct study among this group of businesses. Obviously, their impact is enormous, and with the crisis, they are the first group of businesses that tend to suffer or feel the impacts and the sheer brunt of crisis. So they are extremely affected when crises occur, and this goes back to one of the questions that I just received regarding how to find funding when a pandemic occurs. That's a very interesting, the million euro question, or the $1 million question, because that's exactly what most micro and small businesses will feel. They will feel the financial pinch. First and foremost, banks usually keep their doors shut to any funding, and governments also, especially now that the fundamental needs have been shifted to medical and other issues. So the priorities for government budget is shifted elsewhere, unfortunately, because micro and small businesses are extremely important, even especially in times of crisis. One of the first knee-jerk reactions of business owners and managers will be to let people go when the revenues decrease, and especially with shutdowns when no revenues come in. So to answer that question, funding is nowhere to be found. One of the key findings that we found among Italian businesses is that they tend to rely upon their own savings. So a key recommendation for any business startup will be, the moment you start making revenues, leave money aside, because you will have situations where you will need those savings for a rainy day, and rainy days, there will be plenty of those. In 2007 and 8, the whole world experienced the global financial crisis. So let's move on to the next slide, please. And as a result, many businesses have to rely on those savings to continue their existence. So as you can see, MSMEs are also fundamental for Vietnam's economy. I did my research, and about 50% of the employment here is created by MSMEs. And the reason why I also like conducting research on this group of businesses is that a lot of them are actually involved in international business. We always think about multinationals or micro multinationals as the key international business pioneers and leaders, but in actual fact, there are millions, or at least thousands, of micro and small businesses that are exporting. In the European Union alone, it's very easy for them because the borders are pretty much open for trade. So it is possible for someone planting some kind of product or manufacturing some kind of product to have that product cross borders. So they are technically exporting. I have provided in previous presentations examples of people in the UK and in other countries who are also involved in manufacturing, food production, who also are heavily involved in international business, especially in direct exports. So they are extremely important. Next slide, please. So one of the second question on how to maintain production and business activities with businesses that directly serve customers, I will respond that in the next couple of slides with my pleasure. Unfortunately, I will have to run to a class after this presentation. So if you have any questions right now, please, by all means, post them and I'll try to answer them. So the first study was conducted among Greek and Cypriot companies. Next slide, please. These two countries were among the most affected in the whole of the European Union under the global financial crisis. Next slide, please. As you can see, it's a lot of data here to chew, but essentially you can see that almost 100% of the companies in both countries are micro, small, and medium enterprises. And one of the key aspects, if you could go back to the previous slide, please. One of the key aspects I wanted to draw your attention to, the previous slide, please, is about the yes, here. As you can see on the right-hand side, the value-added component is extremely valuable from and for micro and small businesses. You can see that the share of the European Union is about 56%, and yet in these two nations, as well as in Italy, the next nation I'm going to introduce is quite high. So the problem, the one fundamental strength of micro and small and medium enterprises is the way in which they add value to their production, and value added or adding value could be maximized or conducted in various ways. One of them will be to work alongside other businesses, or to have expertise, or simply to add innovation to products like packaging, presentation, marketing, and so forth. So next slide, please. So some of the findings that the key findings in this research that focus on 406 businesses, the majority being from Greece. So on the left-hand side, you have some demographic characteristics. On the right-hand side, what were the most perceived factors helping them navigate through the global financial crisis? And we use scales from 1, I strongly disagree, to 5, I strongly agree. So having satisfied customers, but even more importantly, the urge to keep the business, or in many cases a family business, as you can see, 54% were family businesses, is just to achieve longevity and business survival. That was the highest, the most, or the highest ranked element or item, 479 on a scale of 5. And then you have other components that partly help to answer the second question. How do you maintain production? So you keep your customers satisfied, you communicate with customers, the usefulness or the perceived relevance of products or services to customers was also a key component in business survival, because what you are doing, you perceive is needed by some customer groups. Vice versa, you talk to customers and they provide you with that feedback. Personal satisfaction and work-life balance were important, but so even more importantly, of course, was the profitability. And that also goes back to the first question. How do you achieve funding? And funding could be achieved by maximizing your revenues and focusing on cost savings. So as you can see, 4.72 was allocated to managing cash flow efficiently, which is an item that I always emphasize to students. If you learn anything out of my courses, learn the importance of cash flow, because you will need that for your own sake and for the sake of any business you're working for. Managing operating costs, and then you also see accumulated experience. So that means try to go into the industry before you do a master's and learn about the industry. And then you can see later on strategic value, building trust with external stakeholders, which also answers the second question that I received. communicating with customers online, and offering a specialized range of products or services. So again, focusing on business activities that could have implications for the future of your business. Next slide, please. So essentially, those are key elements that help firms survive through a crisis. And I noticed, or someone just told me that there are some glitches, so I apologize for that. So we're going a little bit slow. Greece and Cyprus, how the firm performed between 2008 and 2016, that's 8 years. And as you can see, learning from all mistakes, managing time efficiently, which is another element that I try to emphasize in my courses to students, the importance of managing time efficiently, prioritizing tasks. And then, as you can see at the bottom, having the support from others, so family, friends, and others. So that's fundamental for the running, for the welfare, and for the potential survival of the business. Yes, thank you. I know that I'm a little bit pressed with time. So next slide, please. I'll try not to rush, but I think the next study is about Italy. As you can see, a large, very large number of micro and small businesses is the bread and butter of Italy's entrepreneurship, especially when we talk about family businesses. Italy is probably the world leader in family business, a very, very high number. And as you can see also, the share of value adding is higher. Now, I was a little bit surprised that it's not actually much higher than that of Italy and Cyprus, with so many entrepreneurial people in Italy. Next slide, please. So the data that I collected here was from COVID specifically. So I focus on the impacts of COVID. So the previous data were collected between 2016 and 19. This data were collected last year and at the beginning of this year, so it's fairly recent. So as you can see, something that I also try to instill in students' spirit when they take the units, is the courses that I teach, is that the determination and perseverance in polishing their work. But here, as you can see, is a fundamental tool for business survival, as well as the passion. If you're passionate for the industry you're working for, chances are that you're going to make the extra effort to try and preserve the sustainability of that business. And as you can see, family support and the sense of responsibility that you feel towards family, firm, the staff that you employ, the clients and creditors, is also a key element in the survival, in confronting the crisis. Of course, there are many other elements that you can see throughout, but these are the more the more outstanding, the ones that stand out the most. Next slide, please. So I combined the data to extrapolate 3 fundamental dimensions, and one of them is determination and perseverance, passion, and family support, that were actually quite similar from the 2 data sets. As I said before, obviously, in the case of Italian firms, the data are more recent, and there are other elements that come into play as key factors in helping a firm to navigate throughout a crisis. Next slide, please. So I think we're coming to the end, and I think, sorry, somebody else. I think I might have a minute left, so I'm just gonna quickly check if I have any questions outstanding. Apparently not, but it was my pleasure. I hope I can see you at other presentations. So this is basically it. When micro and small and medium enterprises face unprecedented crises, as the 2 crises we studied before, there are a number of key factors that help them navigate. They are not going to help them survive all of them, but navigate nevertheless for at least a year or so. So hopefully the main key aspects and the main key components of this presentation have come across clearly, but otherwise you are most welcome to contact me if you have any questions or comments. So thank you very much, Dr. Seng, and everyone else for the opportunity to present. And I'll leave the stage now for the next presenter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abel, and thank you for your time as well. I'm aware of the fact that you've got other obligations, so thank you so much for giving us your valuable time. Thank you for sharing that passion, perseverance, and obviously this desire to be successful is important for entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship action. So very key points to take forward as we move away from this pandemic, hopefully. Can I introduce our next speaker, Ms. Thuy Nguyen? She's the chairwoman and founder of datawork.org, and she comes with extensive experience, not only in business startups, but also the idea of corporate entrepreneurship as well. This gives her multiple dimensions as a seasoned business leader, if you like. She actively consults on digital transformation and how best to develop a growth strategy aligned with technology. Her work at datawork.org has helped build a data-driven culture and also develop effective approaches to data and knowledge management for organizations today. And given the work from home, given the virtual environment that we're in, her insights are particularly important at this time. Ms. Thuy's presentation today will highlight the key reasons for digital transformation, how analytics and data could help businesses in the new normal. Ms. Thuy, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks. So hi everyone. Today I want to share for the topic how to transform the businesses with data native leaders and team to survive COVID. Next please. So as you can see, all the great company softwares, they leverage big data to fundamentally change the consumer experience. And what are the software companies that you are using in the remote work from home times right now? Next, please. We are talking about billions of data, but let's look at all of the cloud native softwares is changing the industry right now. To see the proposition of data is fueling software. Square, Airbnb, Uber, Netflix, Tesla, and Nest. We all know that they are top companies in terms of revenue, but have we ever known how much data that they own? From, for Square as a payment company, they have 4 billion financial services or transaction a year. Netflix, the one that you are staying on couch every day, every night at the lockdown, and you know that they have $54 billion out of their entertainment services. And other companies still, working on their new services in the lockdown or the COVID or the epidemic season. But then, the reason why not any other movie or payment or another Airbnb copycat can do the same way as these guys do, it's because they don't have the right amount of data to compete with those guys. Next, please. So we are looking at the way they disrupt. So how they disrupt with data? Let's look at Uber, for example. Do you know how they compete with other Uber copycat? Hundreds of thousands of trip events every day. In data, we call everything by events, right? So a trip you do, a click you do, or even a review you do to the driver, it's an event that the data can track. But then if another competitor of Uber, they cannot just open the same software and just own the industry because they don't have the right insight, the right target market, the right data to produce or to release new features of their products. Or Netflix, 400 billion of viewing related events per day. So what are the events in Netflix? You all know, you click the like button when you like a movie, you click the new releases to look forward to the reminder. All of them, when you use the Netflix and an app, or no matter what device that you are on, you are part of these data pools that Netflix, no one can compete with them. Airbnb, it's, they go really bad in these terms of epidemic with no hospitality services right now, but 5 billion training data points for price tip features that make them go strong, that for them to launch a new feature that everyone, if they want to go try to stay away from the epidemic. You can just hire the whole house, and then from that they can produce new services right in the epidemic. Next, please. Next, please. So the data manifests of features in an app. As you can see, each of these apps, they always come up with a new features or from a new insights. Over 75% of what people watch Netflix come from our recommendation. This is statement from Netflix that to give themselves a head start from the competition, that whatever movies you have, you don't have the right data. The 70% of people watch are telling us every day that what we want to watch, that what they don't want to watch, or what features that we work, or what features that we would kill from our app. So that's why the recommendation work the best in the Netflix. It's not come from any mind of the engineers, of the data engineers, but it's come straight from every single action of data that they track in the app. For example, if you can see some of the competitors of Netflix that built in Vietnam, like Vion or Galaxy Play, you could just check it out today that they don't have the recommendation, yes, but at the same time, the key reason why they can't have the recommendation, because they never think their movie app is a data product to track every single movement, every single event of the users in the app. That's why you cannot produce new features if you don't have the right data to track the right data. Next, please. The next one. So these are all the dashboard that you can see. A lot of reports do not make you data driven, or a lot of dashboard do not make you, look with all the visualize. But then, do you familiar with your Google Analytics? You can see that, okay, today in one of the area you have the hype of the sales, but then what? You cannot just take an action just by looking at those visualization, because in the past, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, visualization is not a thing, but now everybody can have a dashboard like this from Google Data Studio. But what happened? Why business can't take action during COVID? They look at this and they just see, oh, all of the data, the metrics just going down. Then what I'm supposed to do? So what is the difference between your dashboard and all the software company dashboard that you see they have the data-driven culture rather than just have the dashboard culture? Next, please. So this is the difference. The journey to the data-driven enterprise, you can see at the bottom, the innovation happened really slowly from new data. Everyone can have new data. Today you have new customer, you have new data. So we call something like this is exploded, because you have new data every single second with the Internet of Things and social media and all the platforms that you use. But then you move to the new processes when you're not just looking at dashboard, you're looking at, oh, can we just move from dashboard to new processes from the dashboard? What are the key metrics? What is the big data platform that we can store and architect? What are not efficient process between two of my departments, say logistics and sales, that I can improve? So not just looking at dashboard like it's just a static things, but you're looking at like, how can I kill that dashboard with a new process? Every single minute, if you release a new dashboard based on your new process, it means that you are doing big data a good job. And the last one, which is also the most important one, is the new insights. The conversion trends right now is data science and machine learning, but not many companies can hire a best data scientist, especially in Vietnam. No university, I mean the local one, RMIT may have one, the data science and machine learning one that can use globally in a data product. That's why if you have a company come up with a new insights right now, you should look back at your dashboard and say, hey, the new insight that my customer telling me right now from the chat that my product is not good, is that shown in my dashboard, or that insight is just, you know, ignored by my team whenever your team can have an excuse for one failed transaction, for a missed call from our customer service team. So the new insight is something that you can use with your data team to come up with a new dashboard, the new way to architect your data. Next, please. So in the COVID time, what does a customer mean to you? This is a big question that I really want all of you to take note, because this is the fundamental question to really differentiate you from the rest of the industry. If you really care for the customer in a different way after the COVID or during the COVID, you kind of define a new way to approach, define a new differentiation for your company. Next, please. So in the new normal, we always see the new normal is the COVID. What happened if the lockdown happened like a year from now? We can see the audience cannot just go outside. All of their activities going to be all online. Even your grandmothers right now, she has to learn how to order from the supermarket online, right, off your phone. So all of the events that you need to track the data right now, you can see we don't call, oh, that customer come from the TV shopping, that customer come from retail, because they are maybe the same. So you might think of to build a data platform to synchronize all of the data events that they interact with your platforms, no matter it's phone or retail or internet. That is just one person. No matter data device, we don't call them marketing device anymore, because marketing is something that just push without pull, right? You just push to them the content and they don't know how they can respond back to you. So that's why I just want to make sure that the new normal, you need to understand the audience based on your data platform. Next, please. Yeah, these are some of the examples that you can just look up and research why the customer experience, or to understand about your customer from the data point of view, is really important for you to do the research later. Next, please. So your customer is a new breed, but how to understand customer not during they do the purchase, but before they do it? Next, please. So the key solution is that how to turn all of your business, even the managers or the lowest level executives, become the digital natives, not just, you know, hands-on with the digital tools, but they need to train themselves from the mindset of how to utilize your data. Data must be transparent, no matter manipulative, and it should be cross-team. Like I said, it's not from the cross-team dashboard, but it's not behind any door. It should be a dashboard that produces new process and new insights. Next, please. So the question we always say that the data native is someone who can expect their world to be not just digital, but to be smart and immediately to their tastes and their habits. So this is something that we can just come back to our team and ask to adjust, that how we can just not know the digital platform, but how to use and track all the data from those platforms. Next, please. And you also need to ask your team how we can know the full value of our data. Do we have just the data of just phone and names of the customer? So it's not the full value of our data as a company. What else for us to leverage it? Next, please. And data product, like I said, is not magic. It requires user knowledge and skill, but at the same time, you as the business users of the data product, it need to get training and to not just apply false insight, because it's easy for us to just get the dashboard, go to a meeting and try to manipulate those data for your own purpose. So this is also a very important thing to ask your team, that I don't trust that data product if each of my users don't know how to leverage those data from that data product, or social media platforms, for example. Yeah, next, please. And the data-driven culture is about your business user. I mean, even internal or even clients learn how to ask great questions. Business intelligence is not a tool, but it's something to ask questions. In the couple of next slides that I will give it to RMIT teacher, professor, and the organizers to give you those slides for you to have a quick summary or quick glance of a workshop that DataWork delivered to our corporate leaders, how to ask great questions. A couple of the 5 slides, I still put it here for your reference to just ask your team how to ask great questions, not to build the data tools, but don't know how to ask great questions, to empower your team to look at your data and leverage it. So in a couple of minutes in our meeting, I can't deliver the workshop to you, but then you have a quick glance in a couple of next slide later on when the organizers send it to you guys, how we do the workshop like this, how we do the session. Next please. Can I come up to, yeah, like this, we even can have examples, how you can, as a leader, ask your team kind of a good question based on the data, the value of the data you want to get out. Yeah, next please. Yeah. So this is the content of the workshop that we always let the leaders and the managers to list out all of the questions that they already ask every day their team, but maybe it's not effective because it's not come from the data standpoint, but it more come from like micromanagement standpoint, like, hey, do we have any revenue today? Do we have any bugs today in our platform, in our software? Is the ERP usable? But then is that a right way to ask questions? For you to utilize the data and to get to the value of your data. Last slide, please. It's a summary. Next one. Yeah, so this is a summary. Yeah, previous one. Yeah, this is a summary of what makes a great question as a data native manager. Invitation, empower, and change. So you have a time at home to do the little homework with your team to go deep into each of these. How to make a great question. Is that invite? Is that empower? Or is that change the world that you are impact with your services? Next, please. I also put it here now the case study of Amazon, and I'm gonna go quickly my last minute on Amazon Prime as a case study. We know that after 20 years, Amazon have outdone all of their competitors, right? Since 2005, we can't believe that more than 20 years ago, 24 years ago, they launched Prime membership, and it's $79 every year for them to charge their customer per customer, right? But then, as you can see, up until 20 years, they have to pay $99 for each customer. What does that mean? Next slide, please. What does that mean for them? It means that for the last 20 years, they go lost deeply. Why they choose that? If we are a company right now in the COVID, we're gonna see this one is stupid act ever, because why you ask the customer to pay $79? Why you have to pay $99 for a Prime membership for them, right? But then do you know in 2015, 80 million members from 20 years did earn Amazon $1 to $2 billion every year. So the reason why they outcome all of their competitors because of one insight that they see from their data 20 years ago, that people want to have their stuff delivered to their home in just a day. So from that, they bet everything into that. Whenever you have a Prime membership, Amazon gonna deliver at your door within the day. So from that, all the loss that they have with just one insight. Next piece. They're spending billions of dollars, but then 2019, they did well over 100 million members from that just one key insight, and then they become Prime Day 2018, become the largest event shopping, bringing in 30 billion in profits in a day and 136 billion in revenue for Amazon to take back all of their loss in 20 years with just one insight that they bet in. Next, please. So I just want to end my presentation with you say like homework, what is your great question? Amazon great question, we might not know, but we know one thing from McKinsey and Company. They say that because Amazon keep asking, how can we lock customer more tightly into our growing ecosystem of product and services and media. They don't ask their team how to have another dollar, how to have another customer, or how to run marketing platform more efficient, but they ask the great question based on the data point or the data insight that they have, that the customer, that all of them 99% want to deliver fast and want to deliver, want to return fast. So they bet all in, and 20 years later now, the owner of Amazon, he the billionaires that top billionaires in the world with just one data insight. So I wish you luck in the COVID, and I wish you find your great question based on your data and to find that data value. Thanks. Oh, this is also my contact, and because the short time, I can't just go through each and deep into each slide, and the audience is also not coming from tech industry as well, so I'm happy to answer your question with my email. And for hiring a data team, we also have a corporate to share how you can start with data. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Tree. That's a lot of details there and a lot of insights as well. Perhaps we will invite you in for another session to share even more details with our colleagues and our students. A lot of information to take in. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the audience. So this is the panel Q&A. Please can I ask that the audience continue to put questions in there, and we'll try our best to get through all questions. Because Dr. Abel is a bit busy with a class, we've asked my colleague, Ms. Thuy Nguyen, to join us as well. And Tu is the Associate Lecturer in Entrepreneurship at RMIT, and she's working here since 2009. Her passions are in the area of entrepreneurship and innovation and creativity, and Tu will be joining our panelists today to answer any questions that the audience puts to us. I'm just going to field a couple of questions. I think the first one for Joe, if that's okay. And the first question here is, how do you find funding when a pandemic occurs? And how do you maintain production and business activities with businesses that directly serve customers? So how do you get money, and how do you keep going in a pandemic?
Thank you for the very good question. So this is something we were asked quite a lot during the pandemic by our business organizations, by our members at the IOD. So there's a number of things. There's several things in terms of how you find funding when a pandemic occurs. So I guess the first thing is, it's really important, of course, for the directors in the organization, for the entrepreneur, the leader, to have a very tight understanding of what the outgoings and what the immediate income is for the organization, so that they have that sort of oversight of the financial stability and make sure that it is indeed a going concern. So we recommend for our members to speak to their local authorities. So that can be a local council, they're around the UK. So speaking to government agencies that support business. So in the UK, we have something called BAYS, and so they support the business community from a policy perspective. The other really key place for business leaders to go is to their bank, and to have a very honest discussion around the kinds of challenges they're facing. They might be cash flow challenges, they might be longer term concerns, because the sooner you do that as a business, the more support the bank can give you, and they do have very talented financial advisors who can help you navigate the very challenging situation. Now, on the how to maintain production of business activities, and also for businesses that directly serve customers, the really key thing there is that the organization can demonstrate that they have an understanding of how they're going to serve their customers. So, for example, for many sort of service-based industries here in the UK, so it might have been restaurants or takeaways and so on, some of them really had to pivot overnight. So some of the restaurants that you would have traditionally gone and eaten in the restaurant, they actually started to produce these ready-made boxes, which was with instructions, kind of like a cooking kit. So you could a customer could order this kit and then cook the food at home. And so when a business can display that they have this ability to be very creative and to shift shape overnight and change, that really helps their financial support really continue, because you can see that there is this longer term strategy in place. And there are lots of really creative examples. We've had examples of businesses that were manufacturers and they started doing the manufacturing of face masks or the manufacturing of hand sanitizer or hand wash. So it's really about resilience and also adaptability. So as long as the business can demonstrate that they are resilient, they can adapt, then once they approach, whether it be their local authority, the bank, or their investors or shareholders, they will get that longer term support, because they have indeed maybe an opportunity to grow during the pandemic. And many of our members have actually seen growth over the past 18 months, which has been really positive. I hope that helps answer the question.
Thank you, Joe. That's quite interesting, really. It's great to take on the challenge of the pandemic. I think that fits into our next question, which is how to bring our ideas, creative interventions, towards licensing and franchise. Could I ask Ms. Tu, perhaps you'd be able to answer this question here from our audience, Ms. Tu?
Yeah, okay. So as I understood, the question is like how you can bring in ideas or creative ideas into the kind of business like franchise and so. And maybe people may think of franchise model as, like it's being dealing with rules and regulations from the franchisor. And also often in entrepreneurship research, people take less attentions on franchising, but I think in reality, franchise business is as considered as any business, and even though it may have a framework because there's a regulations from franchisor, but you can take from the perspective. And in this sense, I may go first with the perspective of franchisee. And franchisee is usually are those people who are kind of like trailblazer for the market, right? Because as a franchisee, you will be exploring a new market and set a path for the franchisor as well. So in that sense, they act as a role like an entrepreneur, and they are close to the market, I would say. And in that sense, they may exhibit the entrepreneur skill set in exploring the market and understanding the customer much better, I think, even than the franchisor themselves, because they are more far away from the market. And look at the case of the McDonald's in China, for example, right? You see the Chinese McDonald's, they have to adapt a lot to the local market, and they really have to understand the taste of the local in order to to bring up new products that McDonald's and somewhere else don't have. And that we usually use the concept of reverse innovations as well in entrepreneurship, that you learn from the local knowledge, and you may spread it out also for the whole franchising. And the last point I think I want to make is that when you get close to the customer and maybe connecting to three is maybe better in answering that too. But to add to the point that that nowadays in entrepreneurship, we also like really watching the customer experience, and you learn much more from the customer, and then you try to reinventing yourself by gaining insight from the customer. Like we say, a customer experience or user experience is much more important nowadays. So as a franchisee, they have that advantage because they are much closer to the customer, and then if you can track and trace the needs and of the customer, definitely you'll be able to be more creative and bring in the innovations into the business. And maybe from the franchisor perspective, they can also start to exploit that innovations and then maybe roll out around in the franchise business. I hope that answered the questions. Thank you.
Thank you too. That's quite insightful, isn't it? So we're looking internally at creativity, but also looking at the market for creativity as well. Yeah. So thank you very much for sharing that. Ms. Thuy, there's actually quite a few questions for yourself. Can I start off by maybe combining two together? How do you manage big data effectively, and how do you turn it into useful information? And then what types of data should we collect to generate actual insights? And that's the problem, is that we've got so much data now. How do we make that into information and make decisions based on that? Could you share perhaps?
So the first question is about how we can use data effectively. And the second question is about, sorry, again?
What types of data will help us generate insights?
What types of data that we should track to know that we get the full value, right? I think that it like the workshop that I said here is all come from the great question that you want to have for your service, for your customer. So come back to the slide that just one key question you can ask your team, your service, your product, that what a customer mean to you, mean to your business. Is that just $10 that you can get another day, or they are a woman that they get stuck in a problem and you really want to solve that, or it's a mom that have no other school option right now in the COVID and you want to help them to still educate their kid. Do you really care for the customer, and what kind of aspect in their life that you care about your customer? I think you always start with your customer, and then all of the data points come out from your customer is something that you start to track as the most important data events. And at the same time, the next step is that you need to architect them into a data platform to make sure to get your business metric. So let's prioritize your top North Star business metric. Like I give you some example, the top star metric of Uber is the number of trips that you make, right? How everything, it's not important as the trips, or the tip in Airbnb is the North Star metric to show that not just the host or the Airbnb do a good job in the way they provide hospitality services. So I think find your North Star metrics in business, and then combine them with whatever you understand about your customer and how much you care from your services for them. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I mean, that's quite insightful as well, and also it's down to what the purpose is for the entrepreneur as they drive things forward. So thank you very much for sharing. The next question, perhaps Joe, if I could ask, I think it's come from Brian. Just give me and perhaps we might not be able to provide insights of the tourism industry in Vietnam, but perhaps you can provide some insights of the members who are from the tourism industry in the UK. What are your thoughts in terms of tourism in the future and tourism in terms of post-COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose one of the things we've seen in the UK is the tourism sector being really agile. So coming back to that whole piece around changing shape of how they work very quickly. So because the UK has had challenges with very high infection rates, we've not had the ability to go and visit other countries, and indeed we've not been able to welcome guests from other countries as well. So the tourism sector have really had to change their approach to tourism, and it was that shift in behaviour that led to things like very high-end domestic trips. So it allowed people in the UK to have a really special experience, but here in the UK, so we call them staycations. So people might go from London to Scotland and spend some time there, or from Scotland to Wales and spend some time there. So we've seen things like changes to pricing structures. They have used things like price cuts to help stimulate demand, and also pre-sales, so selling trips internationally that may not happen for a few more months, or indeed it could be more than another year. But because they have these approaches, it helps to sustain the industry, because they've got this income, people prepaying for future trips at a very affordable rate, and it's kind of a win-win for the tourism sector and for the international country. I think it's very exciting that the rollout continues to be so strong in Vietnam. And there's lots of approaches that could be taken, but I'm sure the tourism and travel sector will continue to be resilient, continue to find creative new ways, things like helping domestic trips be really efficient. And there's potential for, who knows, maybe there might be sort of agreements with other places that have zero infection rates, and there might be sort of bubbles created so that some tourism might exist in the future. So we expect, of course, things will continue to improve over time, but we think that tourism is a really resilient sector overall.
Thank you very much, Joe, and thank you, Brian, for that question as well. And I think we all hope that tourism comes back to normality as soon as possible. I think we're all keen to visit wonderful places in Vietnam and overseas as well. Can I position the next question to Ms. Tu? Tu, I mean, we've got a question from the student here, and perhaps as part of Entrepreneur Action and this idea of successful ventures as well. What is, the most important thing in the mindset of an aspiring entrepreneur, and also what should they really have to prepare themselves to be a good entrepreneur taking on such a difficult time? Tu?
The mindset.
Okay. I think this question has been asked for decades, right? Because in the entrepreneurship school research, people started with that questions by looking for like the traits, the characteristics that make a successful entrepreneurs, and I think it's going on continuing, even it has passed it's long in the past, but that people study that. I would not be able to say like what is the most important, but I would like to share a few, I think, key maybe characteristic or the mindset that entrepreneur should have, even though the school, the trades, when people study trades of entrepreneur, it's been a bit obsolete, but I still see it coming in research from again and again. And one of the things is, I think entrepreneur should be very curious about things, right? They should have that mindset of being curious about things, open for things. They should learn to experiment, because very important nowadays that we say that the time is changing so fast that you cannot keep your own assumptions anymore. Every time you need to challenge your assumptions, and when you challenge the assumptions, it means that you have to go with experiments. So experiments is a skills where we also teach students a lot, try to experiment, even smaller steps, and challenge the assumptions. And from that, together with experiments, and you see also great inventors or great entrepreneurs, usually they will experiment and they pivot things. So together with that, you need that resilience. You need to be tolerant for failures, for example. And I think maybe the most important things when I see as an entrepreneur, as a quality of an entrepreneur, is that you keep learning. Because it should not stop at the university, and we have also the concept of organization learning organization, if you have read the book. So keep on learning, I think, is one of the most important quality, if you want to put it in that way. And keep I think keep experiments is one of the key thing nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you too. That's true as well. Be creative, never stand still, and also, challenge the status quo. I think all important mindsets when it comes to entrepreneur, and some of the most successful people are also quite disruptive in the marketplace. So thank you for sharing.
And maybe just check also Joe the slide presentation, because I think he's also highlight a number of characteristics, right, from like real business. Yeah.
Thank you too. The next question, if I can ask Lucy, please. How to overcome traditional corporate culture and embed a data culture to a long-established operation in Vietnamese SMEs? So if you got a firm that's used to not looking at data, that they should, how change that culture to something a bit more contemporary?
Thanks. Like I said, I personally love this question, because I always work with the big corporate, and the one thing that they never ask this question, anything in the culture of our corporate, we are 20-30 years in the market, we know we have a strong culture, but have we ever challenged our traditional corporate culture with all the good things? That can we adapt with the new digital transformation? Does digital transformation happens with just one tech team, just one data team, or it requires the whole company, and every single one of them have the data culture, the data-driven culture? So that's why I love this one. And to follow up, I really like the idea of Chị Thu to say about the learning organization. I think it is the key word that when you want to build up your corporate culture, you need to ask yourself first that can you innovate or transform your company with a learning organization? check that keyword, research on that keyword, and then when you tick on that, you say, okay, my company have a learning organization, we can go ahead. Then we go to the next one. It's how to build up a data culture out from that. The reason why I say learning organization, it's very important as the step 0, not step 1 in building data-driven culture, is that you cannot just come to your staff because just they are their staff and you are their manager and say, hey, today is the day. I want to build a culture of data-driven, and you have to do it as a top-down decision. Trust me, when I work with all the big corporate in Vietnam, I used to work in P&J, one of the top 3 big corporates in Vietnam for 3 years. And I understand the traditional corporate works because of those top-down decisions, but maybe we need to find the step 0 to turn on the learning organization first. Then we not just top down our members of the team just on data, just because we know how data is important, but we need to inspire them. We need to send the teams to the corporate training, how they see the data differently from yesterday, and how the data can impact their business decision just as much as the big managers or the owners. I think the mindset, the keyword, the mindset, the learning organization, and also not top-down decision in data culture, but more on inspiring and lets the team to have some time to see the importance, the value of data can just bring the whole company as whole towards the data culture. Then I think it should be a couple of steps for you to try with a corporate culture. It's a long way. Some of our clients work with us for 6 months. Some of our clients work with us for 2 years to finally get there. It depends a lot on the nature of your company as well. But I think you will get there as long as you know those two the keywords that I just shared, and you're not afraid to try them. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ron. So I think we're getting quite a lot of questions for you, Lucy. If you don't mind, can I keep you in the hot seat and ask a few more? I think there's a question about, as a small company, how can you compete with the big companies who've got, let's say, massive amounts of data? And also, can we trust data that comes from social media, Instagram or Shopee, for example? So how does a small company take on the big data companies? And can we trust information or data from social media channels?
Like I say, I'm gonna take the examples for you to understand how to take on the giants. There's a company named Spanx. You can check on them on Masterclass. I just checked her recently, and I love her as an entrepreneur. And she started everything with just $5,000 with no knowledge in business. She just graduated her high school, so of course her resources are zero. And then she started an empire. Now she's the first female billionaire in the States. So you may ask that how can she take on those giants out there in retail, especially female fashion? I work in P&J, I work in retail industry. Retail is something that you can't buy it over the night as a startup. So how to take on? She shared that the only thing that she look at the data is not something you think that is techie, it's nerd. No, data of your customer, it's something that you read every day with your heart, with your mind, not just your mind or expertise. The reason why I say it's your heart is that if you're a startup, you even have an upper hand to look at your customer database, to look at the way they interact with you and share their problems, and you find the killer insights from there. Like I say, Amazon 25 years ago, they are nothing. They bet on one insight. So you are a startup right now. You're much more scalable. You're much more flexible. You don't have like a lot of hierarchy to go through. You look at your data. You look at your customer with your heart, and you're telling their problem way more better than all the big corporations. So I think don't look at your data like a data geeks, like a people that work in the engineering, right? You are the business, you good at sales. Look at your sales number and tell what other salesmen can't find from that. So as a manager, you own a certain streams of data, right? And you don't have to be like a big giant to have a lot of data. I mean, if you have 10 customers today, you already have a lot of data to check in, to bet in what kind of insights to make you different. So you should check out her masterclass, and I think there's a lot of other insights. But if you look all of entrepreneurship lesson and starting from the data point of view, you're gonna see data is something that actually go in every single business decision for you every day, not just the big corporation. The second part of the question, saying, sorry, can you remind me again?
Sure, it's collecting data from social media channels and e-commerce sites. Are they reliable?
Yeah, so right now what we call is a third-party data. So you have Shopee, you have e-commerce, you have social media, you also have emails from customer service software like Zendesk, which is emails, right? Or subscription newsletters. I think there's a lot of data points because we have a lot of platform right now. So to leverage them, to know which one is important and which one the full value, to get the full value of it. I think, like I say, are you really confident on your North Star metric? If your North Star metric is, let's say Netflix, their North Star metric, can you guess? Is that the number of subscription? No. Is that the number of paid member? No. Their North Star metric is the open rate. I mean, like after they watch a movie, if they cancel that movie after 5 or 10 minutes, it's a red flag. And then that red flag is a North Star metric for all the teams to work on it, no matter it's content, engineering, product. What can we do to make this rate going down? Because if every 99% of people look at the movie just 5 or 10 minutes, and then they try for another movie and they quit, it means that you lose customer forever. You can't get them back. And how much money marketing can get one customer, right? So I think instead of asking yourself a question of how to get a customer, or how to earn another dollar on that customer, find a North Star metric. And from that North Star metric, come back to all those third-party data to see that which part of those data of social media platform that serve your North Star metric, and then go from there. I think to architect your data needs a lot of work because you don't come from a data background. But like I said, if you really care about your customer, I know that you're gonna find those metrics that matter to them the most. Put yourself, at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is all about empathy. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. Will you pay for that kind of service? No. Then you need to change your third-party data to serve that purpose of you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing, Lucy. Probably just one last question for you before we reach the tail end of today's event. I think you mentioned there's a question around hypotheses, and I think you answered some of that already, but there's a second part of the question is, if you haven't got any financial capital, how would you start collecting data over a long period of time? So how would you perhaps get access to good data, but not expensively?
I think most of the companies that we work at DataWare, when they come to us, they always have that kind of fear. They say that, oh my God, I can't spend $1 million on this, how we can start, right? But then when I ask them the question like, so can you show me the data that you have? They show me, a couple of like Excel files from the finance team that they track only the post-purchase or the successful transaction. And then I ask them, do you think the successful transaction is all data that you want to track or you want to understand about your customer? Then they kind of like wake up. They say, oh my God, I never have an idea of about data. And then when I have the data, I thought data is something that finance team can provide to me. But actually, it's not. If you come from that standpoint, like financial point of view, it's correct. But it comes from customer point of view or business point of view, it's like just 1%, right? Like I said, if you look at Amazon Prime, for example, they don't look at the revenue, they don't look at the customer, but they look at how the retention, like how to keep the customer locked in their ecosystem, right? So if one customer quit, it means we have a problem and we need to come back and change it. So I think it's not about how much money you have, it's about what kind of data you want to track And then from that, it's not the bunch of Excel file anymore. For example, have you ever tracked the missed transaction, the missed call that people call to you but they never reach to your team? So, or the feedback of the customer, have you ever tracked them? So I think there's a lot of, I'm sure with you, when you ask this question, 99% of your data haven't been tracked. And if you track, you're gonna know how to optimize those data. A lot of my clients, when they come to me, they have very limited cash flow, and at the same time, it's proven for them that they can get return on investment, and they invest more over the time. But at the starting point, they only spend $0 with Google Data Studio. You can check that keyword out, and it just lets you to import all of the Excel files, and then it's zero. It doesn't cost you anything. But then, like I said, I can give you all the big names of the platform, but if you don't do the homework that I share, then all the software doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So a lot of my clients start with zero.
Thank you very much, Lucy. I think that's really interesting, I guess. And I've never thought of calls or actually missed transactions as well. And you're correct. I mean, we tend to look at the positive data, but actually the negative data gives us as much information as well, and how we can use that to create insights. So thank you very much for sharing. I think you've been in a hot seat. There's quite a few questions coming to you, and I think there'll be plenty after this event as well. I'm just aware of the time. Can I just ask each of our panelists perhaps just to give maybe one or two final takeaways before we end the session today? Joe, perhaps you could start us off. Do you have one or two takeaways in terms of entrepreneurial action, in terms of how we can deal with COVID and the post-COVID scenario? Just one or 2 points to end this today. Joe?
Thank you very much. I'd say the one that's really stood out for me is around data. I think it's so clear now that moving forward, it's so important for entrepreneurs to really pay attention to the data and to use that to inform their decisions, to better serve their customers and to be more resilient. And I think the second point for me is around just how positive the outlook is moving forward. There's so much opportunity, so much positivity, so much scope for growth. And I have no doubt that many of, indeed all of the people on this call will go on to do incredible things. And I'm very excited about the future for entrepreneurship and for business. So yeah, I'm feeling very positive after this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Can I ask Ms. Tu perhaps to have your final takeaways before we end today?
Okay, so for me, just to be back to the entrepreneurships, actually, in the time of COVID, as we see, is an extremely uncertainty and change. And entrepreneurship is actually where people working under the condition of extreme uncertainty, right? So therefore, I would say entrepreneurship is thriving at such a time like now, I mean, adding to data, I think data is very important nowadays, but also human, like the skills that you need, the mindset that you need as an entrepreneur, that you should keep learning, keep being resilient, and keep exploring those qualities is very important in the time now, because if you look at it, it's the change of the pandemic also create a lot of opportunity for people, right? And in terms of like corporate for established organizations, I would say that maybe you should check out also there's a great book called The End of Competitive Advantage. So we don't believe anymore into like the sustainability, sustainable advantage. So don't sleep on that. And therefore you really need to take on entrepreneurial action and keep reinventing yourself every time. And how to do that is using the entrepreneurship skills and also using data. And what I may want to borrow and pick up from Lucy as well, that I like the idea of you say the audience in one, you know, like the customer is like it's everywhere. So no, sorry, an audience of one. So the customer also have many services in one customer, and that give business a lot of opportunity to explore if you are really stay in touch and close to your customer and maybe using data. Thank you.
Thank you too. And Lucy, would you be able to share perhaps your final takeaway? I'm sure there's going to be a lot of points to take away as well after the session.
I think I did share a lot, so right now I'm gonna just share one last key takeaway. Promise. Not gonna be a lot. I think I'm gonna challenge all of the audience here to learn one of data class or a data skill during the epidemic. It's gonna transform not just your company but your mindset. And data literacy, it's just like coding or it's just like typing literacy. 15 years from now, 15 years ago, not coding or typing, it's not something like a literacy for our parents, right? But now, do you have ever asked 10 years from now what kind of literacy that we should do? It's not coding, it's not typing, because the no code or typing, it's something that even the kid right now can do it, right? So I challenge each of you as a key takeaway, learn one small skill related to data during this COVID time. It's not just for the business, it's for you. Because like I said, the word literacy, it transforms the way you think about your business a lot. Yeah, so that's my final key takeaway and also my challenge to the audience.
Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, that's quite inspiring. And I think also it just reminds us of how little we know and how much we still have that opportunity to grow as well. And like I said, data is just not one single multiple looking at data. I'll take on your challenge and I'll try my best to figure something new as well in terms of my analytics and how I can take things forward. Right, that just leaves me to thank all the guests and all the panelists today as well. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, sharing your knowledge as well, and also all your experiences. It's given us a lot to think about, this idea of agility, the learning mindset, growth, perseverance, data analytics, a culture of data. There's so much information and so much opportunity for businesses to pivot and businesses to grow in a post-COVID era as well. There's also many practical takeaways. I think there's some tools and techniques and some deep insights that will help us on our day-to-day operations and perhaps some strategic ideas as well as we move forward towards the future. Can I also thank the audience today for your engagement and for putting these questions to us and for giving us your Wednesday afternoon as well. It's been very enjoyable. I think my mind has been blown by the different panelists and speakers as well, and also some of the questions the audience helped deliver that depth in engagement and depth in discussion as well. So thank you very much once again. For those of you who would like, the recording of today's session will be made available to you as well. Please feel free to drop us an email and we'll share that link with yourselves. But thank you once again for coming today, and please stay safe and watch after yourselves. And we hope to catch up with you face-to-face soon over a cup of coffee someday. Take care, everyone, and best of luck in your entrepreneurial endeavors.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.